Hello, hello, artisans. AJ, the Joy Weaver here. I'm super excited. Tonight we had our Vulnerability Guild tent, just packed full of goodness. So if you haven't watched it yet, worth the watch. We talk about heart wounds and things like that, which I'm going to touch on here. But I really wanted to take this Mermaid Musings to go in depth about how to take vulnerability outside of ourselves into other people, right? The start of vulnerability is the place between the heart wounds and recognizing that they are not the truth about us, and that then we're recognizing that and welcoming other people into that space. So let me break that down a little bit. Sorry, I just watched a funny video and I was laughing. Excuse me, so my throat's a little dry. P.S. Before we get into serious stuff, I got this robe for $31 on Amazon, and I feel like a freaking queen. So it comes in plus size too. So if you have needs to just feel like a little bit of like luxury and abundance, I'm telling you, this robe. I'll post the link. Anyways, okay. So heart wounds are lies that we believe. If you watched Mermaid Musings from Creativity, it kind of, we talked about this, and we talked about your inner critic and your inner defender and how to like label that voice. So we go in depth into that in the other Mermaid Musings. So I'm not going to touch on that here. But we have these heart wounds, right? These lies that we believe. I'm not good enough. I'll never be enough. I ruin everything I touch. I'm messy. I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I'm never going to measure up. Right? The list goes on, and it stays in the back of our heads. We use it as an excuse for anxiety and like perfectionism. And there's a difference between everyday anxiety and like actual anxiety disorder too, right? So let's separate those as well. Please don't at me. But our inner critic and these heart wounds can make us strive, make us navigate situations from an unhealthy way, right? If we know what our heart wounds are, when you know when a pothole is in the road, you avoid the pothole, right? So heart wounds are doing the same thing. When we know where our heart wounds at, hey, I'm messy, or I'm afraid I'm not enough, so I overcompensate so people will like me, or I overfunction so other people don't have to do as much when they're around me. However this looks, when we know our heart wounds, we can navigate around it so that when they are triggered, right, when you have that reaction, nobody just reacts to react. They're reacting because of something. And oftentimes it's not what people said. Well, sometimes people say crazy stuff, but usually it's because something is triggered inside of here, and those are heart wounds. They're beliefs we believe about ourselves that are lies, and beliefs are just mental objects that our brain is holding, right? So we can switch them out. We have neuroplasticity. Once we recognize our heart wounds, we can start to rewire it, and that's what we do in Tent. That's what we do in Joy Guild. That's what we're doing here, right? Is we're learning. And I also want to say something before we dive more in. There's been some flack lately about self-help and how it's so dumb, and self-care, and like who needs it, and like I just want to, everybody else first and then me. Like I'm not one of those. Somebody told this to me, and they're like, I'm not like you, AJ. I can't like take care of myself and then take care of other people. And I was like, but and they're like, everybody else has to come first, and that's how I'll be happy. And I was like, but you're not even on that list. And they're like, I don't need to be, like, I'm fine with it. And I was like, I don't know that you are though. I was like, when I do that, when I switch them around and I'm taking care of everybody else first and not putting myself on the list at all or at the very bottom, I get resentful, bitter, and angry. And I burn out like I did in December. And she's like, oh, I used to be really resentful and burned out, but I'm not anymore. But also there is some, right? And so I think we can trick ourselves into thinking, I don't need this. It's fine. It's whatever. I've come this far. Like, I've lasted this long. I don't need to heal. I don't deserve goodness. And I just want to bring our awareness that this might be a big heart wound that doesn't even look like a heart wound, right? I can tough it out. I don't need self care. Self care is for wimps, self help's for dummies, whatever. Is it though? Or is it an extra guide of people who have screwed up and messed up and fell on their face and are just like, hey, here's a way to avoid XYZ, or hey, here's some language that helped save my marriage, or hey, here's a tool I used when I was navigating a hard conversation with my family so that it goes smoother for you. And so I want to give us this permission to use the tools that we're given, that we find, whether it's in the Joy Guild, whether it's somewhere else, whether it's a book you read. Um, there's a lot of shame being thrown about for trying to better yourself and trying to grow. But anybody that's just like, I'm just stuck in my ways, like, yeah, sometimes as we get like super old, our brain slows down. There's a lady who learned dancing when she was 80. And if we can learn new physical things, we can learn new mental things, you know. Um, we can learn to be braver, kinder, gentler, wiser, use our words better, instead of weaponizing them against other people and ourselves. So just something in my brain is you don't have to be miserable. You don't have to be angry at yourself all the time. You don't have to be resentful and bitter at other people. Like, this is choice. And there's structures and there's systems, but there are things that we can actively do to take care of ourselves so that when we do face hardship and when we do run into things that are crazy or traumatizing, we have more tools available and readily accessible for us to use, right? And to share with the people around us. And isn't that a world that we want to live in, where we're all trying to do better and we're all saying, thank you for teaching me. Sorry, I will do better next time. I appreciate you letting me in on this. Like, that's the world I want to live in, not this is just the way it is. Like, everybody else just, I'm never on the list. Like, it just kind of hurts my heart. So please give yourself permission to, even if you're not at the top of your list, to be on your list. Okay, moving on. I think we've talked about this in the Boundaries Mermaid Musings before. So if you've watched that, this might be a recap, but we can always use recaps, right? 3 tools: levels, story I'm making up in my head, and it would feel very supportive if. So first one is levels. When lies, story I'm making up in my head right now, because we're going to go both ways. So story I'm making up in my head right now is a way to key people into the story that your heart wound and your inner critic is telling you, right? So let's say I asked Jared to grab something from the store. He doesn't. He comes home. He's like, hey, da just talking. And I'm like, where's this? Where's the applesauce? Oh, I totally forgot. I'm sorry. Story in my head. You forgot because you don't care. I'm not important. Nobody cares about me. I have to do for everybody else, right? I'm making this up. So just, this is heart wound making up. So, the story I'm making up in my head is that I'm not enough and Jared doesn't care. But so here's what happens. The story is made up regardless, right? Because our brain is always piecing together things and facts and stories and history and replays, right? It's like, oh, hey, but I've seen this before. But remember this time this person forgot something about you? But remember when this time, like, your friend didn't recognize your birthday? But hey, remember, right? And so it's pulling all these pieces and it's meaning making, even if the meaning is wrong. It would rather have a meaning than no meaning at all, regardless of if it's good or bad. Yeah. So we have the story and then we react or we respond. And so if we react, we use the story as a weapon. Whatcha? All I have is my maraca here. So maraca weapon, stamps down. And we say, I can't believe you don't care about me. How dare you forget these things? Applesauce is my favorite. Like, just right. And he's like, whoa, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, you had mentioned it on the way, it wasn't on the list, but I love you. How could, what? No, where is this coming from? Right? Because it's not about the applesauce. It's about the heart wound. How many things? Big fights, big reactions, tiny things. Chandelier. Remember when a chandelier falls? Brene Brown teaches us this. It goes and pain ricochets out because we are live wires. So option 2. I feel like I have my mug, but I just, not a cigarette, but this robe makes me feel fancy. I hope whoever is watching this, I hope you get a robe. Okay. The second option is using the story as a basis for vulnerability. Because when we share it of like, I know this isn't right. Something here isn't one of these things is not like the other. Like, Jer, I know you love me. I know we're good, but I'm feeling unseen right now because of applesauce. I know that sounds ridiculous. So, but like when you can have that separation space of knowing your heart wounds and feeling like, hey, being left out is one of my heart wounds, that you can be like, whoa, hey, like, hi, triggered, like, what's going on? And when we can say, hey, like, what's going on? What's the story I'm making up here? We can get into observer mode, right? And we can see our brains going, hey, look, I found all these things and I pieced them together for you. Don't you love it? It's my gift. And you're just like, ah, thank you. Because just like when thoughts come in our meditations, just because they're not helpful for the meditation doesn't mean your brain's not trying to help you. Make sense? So when we say our story from a place of, hey, Jer, do you have a minute? I'm making up a story in my head right now, and I could use your words or insight because it's just kind of tangly right now. Tangly is a word I use when I'm just like, I need help sorting real quick. So the story I'm making up in my head right now is you forgot the applesauce because you don't love me and you forgot about me and that everything's going to fall apart. In our marriage and life, and then I'm going to be just destitute on the streets because nobody will ever love me again, and he can be like, ooh, hey, okay, like, no, and he can speak some truth into that, and then I'm vulnerable for that because I'm looking him in. So sharing our heart wound and our story that we're making up in our head from a place of vulnerability allows people to wrap us in and say, hey, I see you, I love you, you're okay, you can be here, thank you for sharing this, instead of weaponizing it. And then who knows how they're going to react, who knows what their heart wounds are, right? And then it can just get louder and louder, but this way kind of like stops the bleeding. So that's a really great tool that I use quite a lot. Your story gets used, just so you know, either way, whether we use it against people or we use it for people. It just does. Or we isolate, but it's because of that story. So, what's not the mic drop, but just like, where are you now? The moment I realized that the story was getting used either way is when I decided it would be better to share the story and feel dumb and overreactive and slightly dramatic. Not that I'm ever dramatic at all, but then ice people out. And it's hard. It's hard. And sometimes it's not the right place to share a story, right? You don't always have to share the story about your boss, but just recognizing it and maybe sorting it out with a friend later or somewhere else, throw it in the Joy Guild, whatever you need. But journaling it out, sorting through it will help you identify what's below it, right? Other things I'm going to say right now about desires too, but there's always a desire under the desire. So if you want to react or if you want to get angry, it's because you want something. Yes, the applesauce, but below it, you want to be wanted. You want to be remembered, right? The desire under the desire. Look 3 levels deep. Okay, moving on. Levels. Stories, conversations are levels 1 through 5. And 5 is death, divorce, destruction. There are probably other things, but it's 3D, so it's easy to remember. Level 1 is just like, hey, let's get ice cream today. Like level 1's just narrow, shallow, fun chat. It could be deep chats, but it's good, right? It's all is fine, happy go lucky. Level 3 is, hey, I'm being vulnerable here. Please don't laugh at me. Like I'm trying to have a serious conversation because sometimes people have coping mechanisms, right? Sometimes all of us, we all have coping mechanisms and we all have listening coping mechanisms. When I hear something I don't agree with, my brain usually freezes and I'm like, because I'm like, where does this stack up in my beliefs? What do I think? How do I want to respond? Right. So like, and then somebody might see that and be like, oh, she hates me or she doesn't agree or she's not, I don't know, anything. Right. There's some people there when they listen and I say something that they don't agree with, they're like, and I'm like, they're judging me, those judgy fish, but like people just also have their reactions. And sometimes people laugh when things are serious. Sometimes people cry when things are serious. Sometimes people deflect, reflect, get angry, right? There's a whole slew here. So sarcasm. And so level 3 is like, hey, I need you to meet me here and also be vulnerable because I want to have a conversation. When I got my bilateral self-lympectomy last year, when I got my tubes removed, when Jared and I started having a conversation, I did this poorly because we sat down at a buffet place in public and I went, Jared, I want to have a level 4 conversation. We just sat down with our food and he's like, whoa, about what? And I'm just bawling. I'm just sobbing in the middle of the buffet place. And he's like, AJ, this is like 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. And I was just like, it's about surgery. But he's like, oh my God. Okay. He's like, I thought somebody died, or like he's just like, you gotta say what you need first. So learn from me. Don't have above 3s in public if you can help it. But say what it's about as well. So, hey, I want to have a level 4 conversation about traveling in the pandemic with our family this year. Do you have time to chat now or later? What would feel supportive to you? What feels good? I need like 30 minutes or maybe an hour we can set aside. What this does is this sets them up. How many times has somebody been like, we need to chat? And you're just like, like you're running the things, right? Our brains bringing the tape, like our brains gaslight us, and our brains are hoarders. They hoard everything, all the memories, except for where we kept our key memories. That one they lose. So when we key them in, what do we need right now? What do we want to talk about? What's the topic? Don't leave them hanging because that's just rude. We don't like it when people do that to us. So, right, we're changing. We're rewiring. What level it's at? Level 1. Hey, like I just want to have a fun conversation. Like, what are we gonna wear on vacation? Right? Like, hey, what are you most excited about? Level 2, vacation chat. Hey, there's this taco place that I really want to check out. I just want to make sure that it's on our list. Level 3. Hey, I don't really want to talk to your parents about faith on this conversation. So maybe we can like rewire it, but you're just like, I'm being vulnerable, but like, hey, here's some ways that we can work out. Level 4, like, even if our family hates us, I don't think we should travel. Or like, we cannot talk about these things. I will leave the room if these things get brought up. Level 5, like, we're never going on vacation with your family again. Like, we need to like divorce parents. I don't know what you say, cut them off. That's like a level 5 conversation. So do you see kind of like the same theme of a vacation, how level 1 through level 5 is very different. And then not ambushing them of like, we need to talk right now. Because maybe you've prepared for a day, month, year, who knows? Depending on what it is, they don't. You're coming out of nowhere. You're fresh out of, what is it? Fresh out of flowers, fresh out of Hampton? I don't know. And so give them space. Jared's an internal processor, other friends who are internal processors that are like, okay, let me think about this. Anytime I have to talk to my mother-in-law about something serious, I send her an email so that she can have time to respond. My dad, I could just call him up and we'll chat. So everybody's different, whether they're internal or external. Don't take this personally, but allow them the space to craft a response to be the person that you want to have a conversation with. Does that make sense? You want to have an intimate conversation with an internal processor, tell them what's up, ask if you can meet later, give them time to get their thoughts together so that when they come to the table, they feel ready. And you can have a good conversation. Okay. And then the third one is it would feel very supportive if when we are vulnerable, one of the things I love most about 10 is please do not give advice unless asked. Like, please don't remark on other people's stories or be like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Because it can feel really dismissive, right? If you're like, oh, I feel like when this happened to me, I felt very scared and frightened. And somebody else is like, I didn't feel that way. I felt really bold and empowered. And it's like, that's not helpful. And so sometimes we don't have those same guidelines for when we're in public and talking in our regular human lives. And as much as sometimes we can try to do that, we're fixers by nature, right? Humans. And hard spaces are hard, except for Enneagrams 4s. Apparently, they're just great at it. And 5s. I'm not. I'm a 7. I'm working on it. But was I saying? So when we can ask, hey, it would be supportive if you could give me some advice on what you would do in my situation. I'd like to share this with you. Then they can know, okay, you want to know what I would do. Okay, hey, I want your feedback on the words I said, and if I need to follow up with an apology or like a screw you, I said what I said. Um, hey, I don't really want advice. I don't really want feedback. I just kind of need to vent and kind of just get it out and maybe some sorting afterwards, but I'll let you know. But I just need to be heard right now. We make lists for our birthdays and for Christmas, and we are thrilled when people grab something off the list. So why don't we also make lists and requests of what we would like in conversations? It's not losing, it's not cheating if you ask in advance. It's like organic farming, right? People just think like the tree grows out of the ground, but like you actually have to do a lot of tending. Same thing goes with a conversation or asking for what you need. So it feels very supportive if da 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 gives them the opportunity to be gracious to you and say, oh, because you know what happens if we don't do that? We put unmet expectations on the people. I didn't want to be fixed. Why are you always trying to do this? I just wanted to be heard. Did you say that? Did you let them know? Did they have to guess? Because then they have to figure out, what do you want? Do you want to be consoled? Do you want to be encouraged? Do you want to be left alone? Do you want to be fixed? A lot of things to pick from. Your odds go down significantly. So let your both have a win. That makes it a much safer space to be vulnerable in as well, right? Um, People are not mind readers, is the end of this story, honestly. Is people are not mind readers. You're not a mind reader, they're not a mind reader. It is very easy looking at me the, to think you are a mind reader, to think you know what people are thinking, and project all over them. I do this often, something like that. And so when you catch yourself being like, this is how they feel, or obviously they said this because da 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 da. Did they say that? What did they actually say? That's what Jerry says. What did they actually say? Did they really say that? So I wanted you to start doing that to yourself. Oh, I'm so dumb. Am I though? When was the time I was smart? Oh, I could never like talk to them like that. Could you though? What would you need? If we can start like that, like being like that friend that's like, is this really true? If we can be that friend to ourselves, we can save ourselves a lot of time and energy and angst. This isn't to say that conversations are not still going to be hard, right? There's hard good and there's hard bad. Um, Car accidents are hard and bad. Giving birth is hard and good. Um, there's levels here. Hard is not a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Just like honesty can be brutal, it can also be kind. So just some flexibility in that. But I hope these were helpful. Let me know what you like and what resonates. Please use the Joy Guild, write your thoughts and tools you use for vulnerability. And we'll put some books out. Yeah, I got to make a book list too. So, as always, I'm just so grateful to walk alongside you and to encourage you and support you in your journey into becoming the embodied soul you're always meant to be. I'm proud of you. You're doing good. You're showing up one step at a time. So sing your soul song and have a marvelous day, friend.